We are live. It's Monday afternoon, and I feel like I'm barely awake here. Actually, because I was up kind of late watching videos of this thing going down in Minneapolis. And so,
Of the protest videos?
yeah, I watched them last night as I was falling asleep. And I did find it. Then I had really strange dreams. Like, I dreamt that you needed to wake up to do morning prayer and that you were awake but refused to start the Zoom call. And I was like, slow motion, like you have to start the Zoom call. You can't just not do it. So I feel just,
Why was I refusing? Like, did I have
I
something
don't
else?
know, no, it didn't make any sense. It was like everything was slow motion and it was terrible. So, uh, yeah. So, well, I don't know who all has seen it. I think just launched right in today. There has been a lot of unrest in Minnesota, of course, over the last several weeks. And it's interesting to watch it from afar off. But then yesterday, some large group, I can't really tell from the video, of people were able to just enter a Southern Baptist church in
Are you sure
Minneapolis.
Southern Baptist? Are you sure it was Southern Baptist? Okay.
Yeah, because I read Jenny Burks this morning and it's Joe Rigney's, like he helped start it, but it's an SBC congregation and it's a beautiful building. I was like,
Yeah, I think it used to be an Anglican church
oh,
or Episcopal church, but I'm not sure.
very pretty. And the chairs are nice. I mean, there's no kneelers, no books,
Yeah, yeah,
no altar, but it looks like a church. That's straight out of the gate. The outside of it is really nice.
yeah.
And then it looks chaotic. So the first video I saw, it was hard to tell what was going on. Well, the very first video I saw was of the pastor kind of being accosted by Don Lemon. I don't know if I'm saying his name right.
Yeah.
Uh, erstwhile, no, that's not the word I'm looking for.
He used to be
Sure.
he used to be a reporter for CNN, but he lost his
Yeah,
job because he's a bad reporter. I mean,
super bad reporter.
yeah,
So you can see the clip of him with the pastor, and then there's lots more clips. Like I did watch the one where there's a little guy in the corner, and he's going along and cussing people out
yeah, in the church, threatening them.
in the church. And then there's a other video of people sort of chanting the name of the person who was killed before, uh, and then it's interesting that
Don
I mean, it's really go ahead.
Don Lemon has a video of himself before the church going to the church with this group in a parking lot, getting ready to go, and he's going to accompany them because he knows what they're going to do. And he says, "I can't tell you where we're going. This is part of a movement that is disrupting public events throughout the country, and I won't tell you where we're going to go. We're going to go to this place." So he was in on the beginning. Like, he's part of it. He was part of the plan to go. I mean, he claimed to when he was there, he's just a reporter, but I mean, he was clearly in favor of it. Like the video he shot, he was clearly in favor. He thought it was a good thing. He was worried when he first pulled up to the parking lot because there was an American flag there, and he thought it might be a MAGA group rather than this protest group. But it's BLM, it's some other groups involved, some other um, kind of radical Marxist groups that are part of this, and they film themselves. I mean, usually like one of these Marxists has a lawyer around or something so they can know what they're doing, but they film themselves. Um, and it turns out that this is a violation of what's called the FACE Act, um, which was actually the FACE Act was passed to protect abortion clinics. Um, and the idea is you can't obstruct someone from exercising their rights, their First Amendment rights or whatever rights a person has in this country. You can't set out to obstruct them uh, or in any way inhibit them from engaging in those things. So it's meant to protect again abortion clinics, but it also covers religious uh, religious worship places of worship. So that's a violation of the federal law. And then there's the Klan Act, which
This is crazy.
yeah, which was passed in 1870 something, I think, 1871, I think, which was designed to help prevent the Klan from preventing freed slaves from voting, exercising their constitutional rights uh, of participating in elections. So that's going to be used too. The Klan Act and Don Lennon, Don Lemon. If you watch the videos, he was very much part of it. He was, if you go into a place of worship and you obstruct what's happening, if you and they ask you to leave and you don't leave, and you don't you yell, scream, whatever you want to do. You don't have to hurt anybody. You just obstruct what's happening. You can be imprisoned and you can be fined heavily. Uh, then, if the church wants to file civil lawsuits, they can do that. So this is probably a very expensive little thing that they just pulled off. And
It looks like it was a communion Sunday. There's a
yeah, they had the
paper
communion
out,
plates out.
and
Yeah,
they all left. Like the service was shut down, so they didn't do the whole service.
yeah.
Um, and
So that's, I mean, I
and they
legally, these guys are legally, this is so they film themselves. Again, you would expect the Marxists to know better than that. 'Cause
wait, I don't know it. Whatever you say, the Marxist. I don't know. I feel like that's a term that doesn't carry a lot of meaning for many people today. Like if you say that, they don't know. They're not principled Marxists here. These
oh,
people
they
going
are.
into this building.
No, they're Marxists. The BLM is a Marxist organization. I mean, literally. Um, that's not that's not even a controversial claim. Um,
I don't know. These people just don't look like they have thought about stuff like that much. It's like a group of people who are just showing up. I mean, uh, well,
but
and
that's how communism, that's how Marxism works. Is you just rile people up with envy and hatred of a certain class, and then you go and cause trouble. That's
so I mean, one thing
revolution.
that's super disturbing, like oh, a lot of it is disturbing, but they kind of went at individual people. There's clips of people filming individual people in the church, a lot of young men who are dressed in suits, and they're lecturing them about what
Yeah,
they're wearing, what they look like, about the
rating them.
risks that they're
Would
drinking.
Jesus wear a suit? As one guy
Yeah,
said, and like, okay, first of all, I guarantee you haven't read a thing in your Bible. But second of all, yeah, he actually wore a seamless garment, which is pretty expensive clothing um, in his day. So yeah, he probably would have worn a suit if Mary Magdalene made him one. Whoever whoever made him that seamless garment, he wore it.
not that the Mary Magdalene made him the same part because they
Wasn't she
had a
taking care?
slave buried.
Well, she was taking care of him, wasn't she? Like all the other women were taking.
I mean, there were a lot of women there. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so
They're
they were
probably
sewing
richer
and
women than Mary Magdalene.
so they
Like
were
the
so
person whose husband worked for Herod.
Joanna,
Yeah, why
the
not
wife
her?
of uh, Cusa or something like that. But yeah, they were doing all this stuff. Like they were like, what? I mean, I can totally. I feel. The women probably. Yes, I'm sure they came along out of devotion to Jesus. But I mean, just the thought of 12 men off by themselves. I mean, every woman would think,
Stressful.
yeah.
Somebody needs to cook you dinner.
So anyway, um, yeah. So the Justice Department already says they're going to file charges on Lemon, and hopefully there were several X posts in which the participants named themselves and everyone with them. So,
They tagged and then they pinned it at the top.
yeah. So, um, yeah, I think this is going to be. I think this is going to be uh, very expensive for the people who did that.
When you look at the congregation in this church, it's very young. There's a lot of young men in suits, like, and there's children.
Yeah,
It seems like a pretty good demographic between young and old. Like and it looks full. Like
yeah,
it, it looks like a church that's
thriving.
thriving. And
And here these people just come in and they start berating, like parade.
yeah,
They were some of the young men stepped in because the ill dressed and ill mannered Marxists were cursing at the young women. And I mean, I have a lot. The behavior of the people in that church was exemplary. They didn't.
nobody got overwrought.
Nobody got overwrought. Nobody fought. Didn't throw. No one threw a punch. Although I think that would have been justifiable in some cases. But nobody did. I mean, it's one thing to turn your cheek, but it's another thing to turn to
All the little
our
children.
little children's cheek. You know. so so
So
you don't and you don't know in a situation like that what the intention is. You don't know. Are they here just to peacefully protest and just yell and instruct, or are they going to hurt somebody? And there was that one guy who was actually threatening, and who was it? Yeah, Christian McGuire said the hung limit held onto the pastor's arm. You don't know. You don't know what they're going to do. So it would be totally justifiable
volatile.
if there was uh, uh, if there were guards in that church to use physical force to get those people out of that building.
So I do find it very stressful, like looking at it looks like the doors were open and all these people just came in. Uh, like in our church, we have a single entry point after a certain moment. You can't just walk in any door of our church, and this single entry point has a person there. You can't, like a whole crowd of people can't come into our
Right.
church after the services started. Uh, like if the crowd came to the door, I think we would shut the door.
Shut the door,
It
lock it,
was
call the police. Yeah.
it was really interesting to see them all come in, and then I I found that super disturbing. Um, but we live in a neighborhood where it's not a not that great, and our surveillance camera footage is not often, but occasionally asked for by the local police so that they can see what was going on in our parking lot at middle of night. Like we have people who sometimes want to come into church who aren't kind of in a good way,
There
so
was
we're pretty
there was
careful.
one man who used to come every Sunday just totally drunk,
Hmm.
and he would sometimes come like where I'm preaching. He would come stand,
He would kneel in front of the pulpit and
or
interrupt.
yeah, he'd do that. He'd kneel in front of the pulpit, or just stand looking at me as I'm
Yeah.
right in front of the pulpit. It's just like rude. So, but over time we thought, we should do something about security, and so now we have people at our church who think about these kinds of things and know about them. And so I feel much more secure. This could not have happened at Good Shepherd. They wouldn't have gotten past the foyer. They wouldn't have gotten past the front door.
Yeah, I mean, our
Yeah.
doors are nice, heavy
Yeah.
doors, and they can be like closed pretty
Well,
quickly.
also, but we have large men who would not let them pass.
Yeah.
Even if one of them got into the door, he wouldn't go far. Um, Don
Yeah.
Lemon wouldn't be a match for.
I don't think okay. So, okay, there's a security side of it, super stressful. Like I saw a post on X, like every church has to have security. You can't uh
Yeah.
and I've said this in um to our own congregation. I think it was Aaron Wren or somebody. Your church website and your church itself needs to be kind of opaque. Like you shouldn't tag everybody in your church at the top of the social media post, and like they'd be easy to find everybody who goes to your church.
Yeah.
It there should be if somebody's caught on camera, like if somebody comes in filming, the kids should get under the pews and you should have some protocol anyway. That's all one side of it. The other side that just really uh, like kind of grotesque uh, is the how well they're angry with them for being Christians. The people there seem to have some expectation and desire to tell the Christians what they ought to be doing and who they ought to be. And it's pretty angry and vile. And like, I don't know who you are, but you can't come. I know I'm a Christian, but I'm an American citizen. If somebody comes up to me and starts screaming at me because I'm a Christian and telling me what I ought to be doing, like that's a new phenomenon. I haven't seen this particular thing in all the stuff that's gone down over the last 5 years. And there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's very pointed, very particular. I feel like I'm not expressing myself very well because I don't really know how to describe what it is that they were telling the Christians in this
Why aren't you
church.
out protesting? Why are you wearing nice clothes? Why aren't you? Yeah, they were like, if you're really a Christian, you'd be out there uh, protesting ICE. Um,
Yeah,
it's like that meme, though. Isn't there a meme about this? About this, where uh, I don't believe in Christianity, so this wouldn't work on me. But didn't Jesus always care for the refugees or something? Um,
is that one of those songs?
yeah, when
This is a great time to get those
the
songs
memes
back.
out. Yeah, yeah. Let's see,
That's a really
Nicole.
good use of AI. The AI songs of the yeah. I don't. Anyway, you should read the comments. I can't see.
Okay, so Paul Erlinson. Oh, so James Gibson says women following Jesus were sellers of purple goods. That's Lydia. Oh no, Lydia was in. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if. I guess maybe you have know what I don't, but I know Lydia was. I'm not sure about the other woman, but Lydia was with Paul, not Jesus. But let's say we are in the process of forming a security team at our parish. This is Paul Erlinson, which is really smart and good. I'm glad you're doing that. And then Nicole Hosick says, interestingly, before we'd even heard of this, my husband asked me after church if I would immediately obey if he told me to get into the pew. The front doorbell the church uses when school is in session had started ringing during the service, and it unsettled him. Here in the South, here in South Dakota, so many men uh, are carrying firearms. This would have gone differently for the protesters. Yes, yes. Ours, I think, same thing. So the cleaning house starts in the church. Was posted by the BLM organizer. Yeah, there was a post on Twitter saying judgment begins in the house of God, um, and then yeah, that way cleaning house starts in the church. So they see themselves as doing this.
As a sort of Christian act.
Yeah, yeah, and then your friend, what's that guy's name? Uh, M. Young, Kevin M. Young,
Oh
Doctor
yeah.
Kevin M. Young, posted a graphic of of Jesus turning over the tables in this church, because of course Jesus would have been a BLM protester disrupting church services. So, um, so yeah, this is I got the sense last week that the narrative was shifting uh, toward or against toward the protester side, right? That's what it seemed like. I think this is going to reverse it. I think this is just that everyone should be blasting those videos out so that people will know these protesters are not all, just your next door neighbor out there expressing First Amendment rights. These people are professional protesters, many of them, being paid, and they are uh, revolutionaries. They're not people that are just protesting. They're revolutionaries. So Joel Gunderson said, oddly enough, uh, uh, this happened right after Joe Rogan showed sympathy for the ICE anti-ICE perspective. I have a feeling that this little stunt will absolutely tank public support for any progressive agenda once again. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's what happens.
I
Um,
mean, because they did behave really well. It's not like what was it, in the 90s, early 2000s, those people that went out and to protest, it became a byword, that church that protested all gay activity.
oh, yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking.
And like the sort of continual drip, 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 evangelicals are really fundamentalist and they're hateful, they're bigots. And like we've lived with that for a long time, and a lot of people have left the church because I think that you know code, these people are terrible, they're uncool, they're bad, it worked. Like a lot of people found no social cred available to them to go to church. So only people who wanted to go. And places like New York and I would probably say Minnesota.
Yeah,
But it's interesting to me looking at this group of people looks very similar to Westboro Baptist. This group here in City's Church looks kind of like, I mean, they look much fancier because we live in a downtrodden place, but a lot of the people in our church dress up and it's winter, so there's like long coats and uh, it's very kind of staid. We're Anglican. Nobody has their hands in the air. It's very decorous and calm, and there's no shouting and well, not that we couldn't. We could if we wanted to, but uh, it's kind of a settled feeling of church. And if you're looking for the kind of crazy, crazy, wacko evangelical looking that I think many people feel like that's what Christians are, you then see something that doesn't look like that at all. They look like normal people who are just being quiet.
and they're
It's like it's like the people when the first person dissected a pig in front of all the medical students and they're looking at like the guts of a pig, but because it doesn't match the thing on their piece of paper, they don't even see it. Like that's what like I mean, I think it'll take a while for people to see, oh wait, some people will look at this and think, oh my word, what's even going on? Why is it like this? But other people, if they think every Christian is a Westboro Baptist Christian, they won't see this and see what the people really are like. Um, but yeah, I agree, Kristen. They picked the wrong congregation.
yeah,
They
that.
picked the wrong church for their optics, and then they protested our tech parish. They look demon possessed.
Oh, who's they? Who protested your tech parish? Um, Interesting. Uh, the demand that the leaders of the church oppose ICE is bizarre. Yes, it's very bizarre. Um, I mean,
Why don't you go to the ballot box? Why don't you get your local congressperson to oppose ICE? Why don't you go get get a judge to say? I mean, they do that all the time. Like they continually stop things from happening the administration wants to do by going to a judge who puts a stay and then it has to be litigated and it slows everything down. This happened many times in the last year. But the Christians in this church have no political power to do anything. I mean, what are they going to do?
well, it wasn't. I think the reason this was targeted is because one of the pastors is the regional ICE director or something like that. I think that's why it
Oh,
was.
Westboro Baptist protested the tech,
Oh,
and it was Gaudette Sunday, and they taunted the rector for wearing a pink dress. That's really funny. That's awesome.
wow.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's see. Why don't you grow your wackadoodle church and be there on Sunday morning? Be there on Sunday morning. I guess I'm assuming you're talking about the people who are protesting. Well, video came out last week of a Methodist church training its old ladies how to protest ICE. It wouldn't be any fun to protest at a liberal church like that.
Because they're already doing the work, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
So interestingly, it looks like this congregation here in Minnesota doesn't want to be political. It looks like they're just showing up to do church. And who knows what people in the congregation think about what's going on with ICE. But many of them could disagree. I guarantee you the people in our congregation, some of them think what's happening is great and some think it's not great. And they manage to have those two separate opinions and take communion on Sunday because it's actually non-essential. Uh, and it's a political thing. And we come on Sunday to hear the word of God and
Right.
receive the sacrament and worship Christ. And uh, so that's not what we're doing. We could talk about it afterwards, a coffee hour. Like we could disagree. I, I mean, I think you could have genuine points on both sides. Um, but this takes it to another like realm. And uh, it also gives credence to the need of ICE to protect their identity. Yeah. I mean, if you have an ICE member that goes to your church, don't post their picture on your
Yeah.
website and tag them.
Yeah. I mean, this is
So, I mean, we have at our church for a long time an undocumented person who uh, lived on church property, and we financially cared for years and years and years. And we also have law enforcement.
his circumstances were quite different.
Totally different. Yeah.
He came here legally, but then his wife ran off. His wife, who was a citizen, ran off, and then he couldn't get back to where he was very sick. So his circumstances were
Very different.
yeah. Um,
But so anyway, I feel a little bit speechless. That it's very stressful watching this go down. I mean, I, it's like at the height of the BLM. Well, our playground here was burned down. Our playground where minority and disabled children play. It's in a black community largely. You know, maybe of the children that play there, maybe 20% of them are white, if that's how you want to break things down. The BLM burned that
down.
playground down
Yeah.
as some kind of act of justice. Like you're misguided, or I mean, you're making a point, but you're not making the point that uh you think that you're making. So yeah, you were doing it. You were doing it to your own children, not other people's children.
Well, this strikes me as having the public persuasion power of blocking people's cars, and when uh, vegans go into restaurants and start pouring blood on people. Or, nobody like those kinds of protests don't win you any fans. They are counterproductive. People look at that and say, "Wow, those people are crazy. I don't even want to get anywhere near them." And this is the same kind of thing. This is a has not done them any good. It has probably really destroyed the narrative that had been going for the last week, I think. Um, and which has been bad for ICE and those who support them. But now I think it's going to be reversed.
It
The
doesn't help the memory of Renee Good. They were shouting her
No,
name.
I mean, and Don Lemon. I mean, I've been watching several. He goes up to these parishioners with his little microphone. Why don't you think they should be here in your church? Isn't this the people's house? Isn't this the? No, it's not the people's house. It's no, it's not
Go
the
to
people's house.
Washington. Go
It's
to
literally not
Washington.
the.
It's literally not. It's not your house. It's
It,
not even the people who go there. It's not
yeah,
their house.
it's every church has the legal right to determine who gets to come in and who doesn't. So if you have someone under discipline, you don't want them to come in, and they come in, you can call the police and have them removed forcibly. Um, you don't know so like if just because an organization is putting on a public thing, like a public church service with the doors open, it does not mean that anyone can go in and disrupt the place. It's still private property, and that means the people who are owning the private property have the right to dictate um, how the service is conducted and who gets to be there.
I
Uh,
mean, we've turned people away from our community
yeah,
purposeful meal, our
yeah. I
super
had a guy just like
because
2 years
they're
ago
being
going
super abusive and
right,
screaming at everybody and scaring the little children. You don't get a free bowl of soup.
right. I personally escorted the gentleman out when
And then the police
uh,
came.
yeah, yeah. So you can't just because it's a public venue or a public play, it's open to the public doesn't mean you can act any way you want in a certain place, in a given place. So, and the law is very clear about disrupting worship, which is interesting. You can't go in and disrupt a worship service. So, if you're preaching and someone just wants to stand up and yell at you, that's illegal. You can um, they can be fined, they can be put in jail, they can be uh, you can if you wanted to, which I don't think many churches would do this, but you could file a civil suit against them. I think this church should do that in this case because this is something we don't want to see a rash of around the country. I think we want to. I think this should be answered with very firmly, both by the federal and state authorities, but also by the church. Um, it was good to see them not
Yeah.
behave badly in the church service. They just the Christians were very calm. But you know,
Wasn't there a thing in it was like it was an Anglican church and it was Nigerian congregation, I think. And maybe a rival group. It was like
yes,
super
yeah,
ethnic
yeah. This is my friend
and
Augustine.
showed up and they were screaming at each other.
There was a rival. There were rival jurisdictions, and Bishop Augustine, or the guy that
Yeah.
said that if you are a real Christian, you'll be raising the dead. Um, he rushes in, comes in with his crozier, and he hits somebody with it.
That was really,
um,
as the Lord says, that's why you get to have the stick. What is Joel saying here? I can't read this.
nobody wants this. Joel says nobody wants this. Liberals are sick of these folks who completely tank any foothold we slowly work to regain. I imagine, though, that most liberals will stay silent because we've been cowed by the far left. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see why. I mean, it's like the same thing as um, on the right. You know, you don't just when conservatives are beginning to make headway, in come the Jew hater crowd. Right? That's that hate the Jews now. We got people listening to us.
They,
Now is the time to hate the Jews. No, no.
yeah.
um,
And then Kristen says, the bishop that Matt, the senior ACNA priest, tried to warn us about. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what you were the senior ACNA priest.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Senior,
Well, we could talk about this for another 10, 20 minutes. We had another item to talk about if we want. Um,
Let's do that.
okay, so just to sort of even things out, in case anybody thought we were being too political here, I got sent a post, and there's this person who I I'm not sure if I have blogged anything about this person and maybe in a friendly way. I don't know. I don't know who he is, and I tried to Google a little bit. I assume that he writes for some publications, but somebody named John Moody. So maybe some of you know about him. And I have no idea if he's good or bad, but this post uh, I thought was kind of had some things in it that irritate me a lot about modern theological discourse. So I'm going to read it out if that's okay. Okay, he says that in Genesis 3, women are cursed in procreation, tied to being fruitful and multiplying in Genesis 1, while men are cursed in provision, tied to ruling and subduing in Genesis 1. Procreation and provision are both pre-fall duties and aspects of men and women. In 1 Timothy, women's salvation is tied to procreation, 1 Timothy 2:15, And men's salvation is tied to provision. First Timothy 5:8. This pattern holds. So I think that's like a little crazy to say. I don't. Anyway, I'll go on, but we need to come back to that point. This pattern holds throughout the Bible, the entire Bible, especially on the female side. The majority of most memorable women in Scripture have fertility and/or family problems. Mary's sword that will pierce her soul is the loss of her beloved son. Hannah weeps before the Lord because she is unable to conceive. Sarah is constantly in danger of falling into a foreign harem and thus having the children of a pagan. It is almost like Paul has the book of Genesis in view throughout much of his instruction in First Timothy, and knew that while the commands are joint commands, that Adam and Eve were made for particular roles and duty it's in their joint stewardship. Also note, almost no one will caveat Paul's instruction for men in 5:8, but to even mention 2:15 will put you in the crosshairs of a large swath of folks who claim to be Christianly. Oh no, I don't know what TLY is. I don't know what TLY stands for. Is that like an acronym? I'm not up on.
TOI, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So, do you have any thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, I wish I knew exactly what he's trying to say. I
Yeah.
just can't quite figure it out. So in that text, yet she will, uh, let me go ahead and read the whole thing. I do not permit a woman to teach or exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control. Now, it's kind of a vague thing to say that a woman's salvation is tied to childbearing. What do you mean by that? Tied to? Do you mean it
For
depends
provision.
on, or are you saying it depends on childbearing?
And then it says men's salvation is tied to provision.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's not clear in chapter 5 that verse let's see, verse
5:8.
5:8. Okay, yeah, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. That's like it's not quite the same thing. I mean, he's in chapter 5, they're talking about the need to have widows provided for, and this is just saying, hey, if you're don't foist your widow off on the church if you can provide for her. That's what unbelievers do. So don't be an unbeliever. Take care of your family if you can do that. That's not quite the same thing as what Paul's saying up here with childbearing. I mean, so there's two options for what he could be saying, and one thing he can't be saying. Right? The one thing he can't be saying is if you don't have children, you can't be saved.
I mean, I hope. Oh,
That-
you mean Paul? Paul's not saying
yeah,
that.
no.
I
That's
don't know
the one thing
who
he
he is.
can't be saying. One thing Paul can't be saying is you in order to be saved, ladies, you better get out there and have more like because that would make like some really like licentious woman who's had 20 billion children saved, unbelieving licentious woman saved for having like 20 billion children, whereas a celibate nun having none would be doomed to hell. And I think no,
No,
that's not true. Or a woman who's not married and doesn't. If you're not married, and Paul leaves it open for women not to be married and men, and since that's the case, not denying he leaves it open, he makes it. He says it's a good thing if you want to remain single your whole life, just devote your life to the church, which would be great. So Paul cannot mean here that women who choose to do that are damned, because that would be contradicting himself. So what he could two possible meanings, and one is that he's just saying in general, because most women do have babies, not all, but many do, that in childbearing that God uses that for their sanctification. Um, he I I don't know that I can't imagine that being the point he's making, but maybe it is. Um, And that's not to say that women who don't have children aren't sanctified in other ways, but this would, I mean, I think you have been sanctified through your childbearing. Um, you've had to endure, you had to
It,
endure, you had to endure pain, and then you had to endure your children. Um, and yeah, so that was a thing. And then I had to endure you. So
um,
I was sanctified through your childbearing. Um, and then, but it could also mean, I know that a lot of commentators don't like this answer, but I like it. It could also mean that the woman is saved by childbearing in the sense that um, a woman gave birth to Jesus, and so um, his being the second Adam coming from a woman, which Paul does uh, bring that up in 1 Corinthians 11, um, that women are therefore saved by, even though Eve was deceived and took the fruit, her salvation comes when Mary gave birth to Christ.
which is kind of poetical. It's
Yeah,
nice. It's like a poetical sort of thing to say, or typological, rather than some kind of woodenly whatever this is. I mean, it's not woodenly literal. It's like uh,
yeah.
I don't really know what to call it. Um, what I don't like about it uh, is at the end, especially when he says, "No one will caveat Paul's instructions for men in 5:8, but to even mention 5:2:15 will get you in the crosshairs of a large source of folks who claim to be Christians." So it's kind of unclear, you know, what Paul might be saying, which is probably why people don't use it as a cudgel in culture wars. And you don't have to add this in at the end. Like, it takes something that could be sort of curious to think about. What is Paul saying? How should, you know, how are we saved? What are men and women like? And it makes it into a scold, like, nobody is as brave as me. And all these awful, you know, people in the church who are cowardly and never scold women for whatever it is that they should be scolded for. I've seen this like so much lately, and it's just getting under my skin. Which is partly why I wanted to be annoyed by this. Like, say something more interesting. I read this post, and then an hour later, I read a really long piece by Peter Lightheart about um, the sacrifices in Leviticus 19. And it was so mind blowing. Like, it was just amazing to think about the scriptures and have them opened up and unfolded. And then I was allowed to draw my own conclusions for my own life. And it was really nice. It's like that kind of writing exists. And then there's this thing. And I feel over and done with this kind of like on the day that a church is overrun by people who are scolding and telling Christians what they believe and what to think. Like, I kind of don't need to
Well,
get
it's kind of the same. It was kind of it's ironically, it's kind of the same thing, right? Because
yeah,
on the one hand, John Moody's saying, if you're a real pastor, you'll tell women they need to get they need to have children,
you need to get out there and have
be
one.
saved. And then the other one, the ICE people, or the anti-ICE people are saying, if you're a real pastor, you'll be come out with us and condemn ICE. So it's the same thing, just different sides of the coin. Um,
Ooh, that's nice. What did Bammerham say?
Apparently, the etymology of scold is Norse for scald, to burn with hot water.
That's
That's
nice.
great. I like that. Yes. There is way too much scolding going on in the world.
Yeah. I'm just gonna get out here and tell everybody, stop scolding me. I'm gonna scold.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the scold began, I think, with BLM. I think BLM started the scolding back before COVID, and then
And I
COVID
think
came.
Christians became afraid that they were going to be seen to be the bigoted racists they apparently are. And I think, a lot of people kind of didn't want to say stuff. I was one of them for a while. And then I realized that people just hated me anyway, so I might as
That were,
well
yeah. I
say,
mean, when it became racist to be white,
yeah,
then yeah, okay. Well, I mean, what can you
uh, I can't do anything
do?
now.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I just think the backlash to that is just kind of really bad reasoning where you take the Bible and increasingly you use it as a stick. And I mean, I don't like it when people talk about the cudgel passages, like progressives who think that any time that homosexuality is mentioned or something like that, it's called a cudgel or a clobber
Bummer.
passage.
Yeah.
And I mean, you should be able to say what the Bible is really saying.
Well,
But
that effectively removes those verses from consideration, right? Because you
yeah,
mentioned, oh no, it's a copper passage. Can't use that
you
because you're
can't use
clobbering
it.
me. I'm clobbering you. We're just quoting the Bible to you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you feel
I
clobbered,
mean, if you feel like
and
you're
then
being laid bare by the double-edged sword of God's word, that's not our fault.
and then there. Okay, so at the same time I read this John Moody thing, you sent me that clip of this guy who's sitting on a stool, and he's like, "I just want you guys to know, Mary was raped."
Yeah, I've never
As
said this
we
in a
all
church.
know that it was true.
Yeah,
Like, sorry,
I mean, can
what?
you imagine sitting up? They just like in it, like I don't know what kind of church. I think it was a Lutheran church, wasn't it? It
Yeah.
was an ECLA, not the conservative or Lutheran, but ECLA church. Can you imagine like being like a person who shows up for Christmas and Easter, like, you know, I think I'll show up for church this morning. It might be kind of nice to just, remember my childhood. And you walk in, the pastor says, by the way, Mary was raped. I mean, how'd you like to be that guy when Jesus gets a hold of him? Unless he repents. I mean, you're talking bad about his mother. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, you don't do that. I mean,
You're
there's
right.
lots of people you don't talk about their mothers. I mean, you should talk about anybody's mother, but, but Jesus' mother, he's going to be not good, not good. But, that's the thing. Um, it's so bankrupt that his critique um, of Mary's virginity is like born out of like what 19th century German scholarship. It can't,
Like so debunked.
that you can't believe in miracles because there are no miracles. Um, the logical progression from I forget who it was. Uh,
Lutheran satire.
no, no, no. It was a German scholar. I can't remember his name, but like his
Okay.
point was something can only be historical if it can be repeated. Like he's trying to fit history into science. Because science you have to have repeatable experiments um, to show the same result in order to show something has happened. But this historian was saying, well, history's kind of the same way. You can't say anything has just happened in the past unless there's a corollary in the present. Maybe that was him, Wellhausen. Um, and so since there's no miraculous corollary in the present, we can't say that miracles are history. That was the reasoning. Whereas I like what N.T. Wright did. He that and that was the kind of line that people were taking all through the 20th century until N.T. Wright came along, and I really appreciate this about N.T. Wright. His work on the Gospels was actually really done, really well done. We said, what actually, history is what actually happened in the past. So
What?
why don't we like investigate the Gospels as records of things that happened in the past, and since we believe that God exists, we can't then say that it's impossible that God would do miraculous things. So let's just start with that baseline.
What's That's just to bring it full circle. What's interesting about the protesters in Minnesota is it seems like they think they're dealing with some spiritual thing. Maybe God exists. They thought it was worth to go and yell at these particular Christians for some reason. And it's like, are we just saying now that there is a God and some people are doing it wrong, following him in the wrong way?
Yeah, I mean, it
I,
struck they all struck me as like,
they
you
wouldn't say
know,
that.
Jesus says to never not judge, and you're judging. That's that
Yeah.
That's the kind of level of theological reflection it seems like these people were
It's
employing.
it's really interesting because if you read the Bible, you'll see that everything comes back round to whether or not God exists. And here, I think we've had 100 years of this idea of the political sphere that could remain fully intact and separate from the spiritual one. And it's interesting to see the two collide in a kind of an ugly way. And it's time to, you know, admit that everything comes back to God in the end and Jesus.
Well, I do. This is something that we've talked about before in Christian Ed, but I think you might have talked about it before too. But you know, going all the way through seminary, I was expecting to have to fight the modernists, right? Like
Yeah.
the Jesus seminar type fights. Um,
Yeah. The little plastic beads, colored beads.
yeah, the evidence demands a verdict kind of apologetics. But and then toward the end, I thought, oh, well, there's also the relativist stuff. Like, no, there's no truth except my own personal truth. And that's still kind of around, but that's not
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
People say that, but that's not what they mean anymore. Because there's a very clear moral framework that you
Yeah.
need to follow. Um, and so we're the relativist age lasted like 5 minutes.
Yeah. And they spent a lot of time sort of prepping for it. So
Yeah,
that's too bad.
yeah,
It turns out that you really do need to brush up on your paganism.
yeah.
And
Well, but then also like because people are spiritual, or whatever, they even people who don't aren't Christians don't really have a problem with miracles. That's not the problem.
no,
It's this Jesus is a bigot. that's
yeah,
that, that's the problem.
it's your moral framework that they
Yeah,
find
yeah,
reprehensible.
yeah. Yeah. Uh,
Well,
okay, not just God does exist, but who do you say Jesus is? Yeah, I mean it's. I mean, I think. Well, Paul says everyone knows God exists, and everyone rejects or excuse me, suppresses that truth in unrighteousness. So everyone knows it. So you're right, Jill. That's the question. Who do you say Jesus is? Um, Joel Gunderson says that personal truth has now become a tyrannical universal. Oh, yeah, this is true. Like a child attempting to control the whole room through a temper tantrum. Yes, that's exactly right. And because the moral framework now is that it's good for the child to have the temper tantrum until the outside world conforms to what the inner child wants. That's absolutely right. Um,
and then the way to counter that is to say, hello, inner child, meet the inner babysitter. That's Terry Pratchett.
yeah,
So, yeah. I did read a great piece on gentle parenting. I read half of it, so I need to go finish it. Uh, and then it was just really funny.
what was
So
it
I'll try
saying?
to read that this week. Uh, well, gentle parenting is like, well, neither gentle nor parenting, but it doesn't, it's actually contrary to what parenting is. Like you're doing the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing when you're a gentle parent. So I only read like 3 paragraphs and I can't remember the author. So I'll try to get back up this week. But I think that we should go along to the next thing because we have stuff, a lot of stuff to do today. And I'm really sorry about not reading the comments on Friday. I meant to. And oh, yeah, I'll link the gentle parenting and the Leviticus article, which might have a paywall, but you might be able to watch it or read it with a free trial. And there were so many good comments over the weekend. I am going to still try to do that. I might do it today if I can, if I can get there. And, yeah, uh, I hope that everybody simmers down this week and becomes more
No one.
thoughtful. No more, no more writing. I'm sure everybody's listening to me and will do what I say. So anyway, thanks everyone for coming by. Have a lovely day, everyone. Bye.